In a small town nestled between rolling hills and vast fields of golden wheat, life moved at its usual pace. People woke up early to tend to their farms, children played in the streets until sunset, and everyone gathered around dinner tables to share stories about their day. It was an ordinary existence, untouched by anything extraordinary, until one fateful night when everything changed forever. Dr. Elena Carson lived in this quiet town, though her mind was anything but peaceful. A brilliant astrophysicist with a passion for unraveling the mysteries of the universe, she spent most of her time gazing at the stars through telescopes or buried in data from satellites orbiting Earth. Her colleagues often teased her for being obsessed with what they called science fiction dreams. They joked that she spent more time looking at charts and graphs than enjoying real life. But Elena didn't care. She had always believed there was something out there beyond humanity's understanding, something waiting to be discovered. And, deep down, she felt it was only a matter of time before the truth revealed itself. One chilly evening, as Elena sat in her makeshift observatory, a converted barn filled with blinking monitors and humming equipment, she noticed something unusual on one of her screens. At first it seemed like static, just random noise picked up by a newly installed satellite array designed to detect faint signals from distant galaxies. But as she zoomed in on the data, her heart began to race. This wasn't random noise. It carried structure. Patterns emerged, almost like language, pulsing across multiple frequencies. It was faint, barely detectable, but unmistakably deliberate. Elena leaned closer to the screen, her eyes wide with disbelief. For years, scientists had debated whether intelligent extraterrestrial life existed, but no concrete evidence had ever surfaced. Now, staring back at her, was what could only be described as a message from beyond Earth. She double-checked her calculations, ran diagnostic tests on her equipment, and even consulted old research papers to ensure she wasn't misinterpreting the data. But every test confirmed the same conclusion. Someone or something was trying to communicate. The discovery left Elena both thrilled and terrified. She knew she couldn't keep this information to herself, so she reached out to her colleagues at the university where she worked. At first they were intrigued, asking questions and offering theories. But when Elena suggested the possibility of alien contact, skepticism quickly set in. Some dismissed her findings as errors in the data, while others accused her of seeking attention. One professor even laughed outright, saying, "If aliens wanted to talk to us, wouldn't they have done it already?" Frustrated but undeterred, Elena decided to dig deeper on her own. Over the next few days, she isolated herself in her observatory, analyzing every byte of information the satellite array had collected. Slowly but surely, she pieced together fragments of the signal. It wasn't just random patterns. It contained specific coordinates pointing directly toward Earth. The implications were staggering. Whoever or whatever had sent the message knew exactly where Earth was located. And based on the trajectory of the signal, they were coming. Here, Elena tried warning anyone who would listen. She contacted government agencies, wrote emails to prominent scientists, and even held press conferences in hopes of spreading awareness. But her efforts fell flat. Most people ignored her warnings, dismissing her as another conspiracy theorist chasing shadows. Even her family grew concerned, urging her to take a break and focus on her health. "You're overthinking this," her brother said during one heated phone call. "Maybe it's just some glitch in your equipment. Let it go, Elena." But Elena couldn't let it go. Every instinct told her this was real, and she refused to sit idly by while the rest of the world remained oblivious. So, she continued working tirelessly, preparing for whatever might come next. Little did she know the answer would arrive sooner, and more dramatically than she could have imagined. It happened on a clear afternoon, the kind where the sky stretched endlessly above, dotted with fluffy white clouds drifting lazily in. The breeze. Elena was driving home from the observatory, replaying the latest batch of data in her mind, when she noticed something strange overhead. The clouds began to shift unnaturally, parting without wind or explanation. At first she thought it might be some sort of atmospheric phenomenon, but then she saw them, massive triangular ships hovering silently in the sky. Her breath caught in her throat as she pulled over to the side of the road. Dozens of these ships loomed above, their metallic surfaces glinting in the sunlight. They emitted no sound, yet their presence alone was enough to send shivers down her spine. Within moments, panic erupted across the town. People poured out of their homes, pointing skyward and shouting in confusion. Cars screeched to a halt, and cell phones buzzed incessantly as news spread like wildfire. Elena stood frozen, watching as the ships descended slightly, casting long shadows over the landscape. She felt a mix of awe and dread, knowing that her worst fears had been realized. These weren't just visitors, they were invaders. And judging by the sheer size and number of their vessels, they meant business. As chaos unfolded around her, Elena's mind raced. What should she do? Run? Hide? Try to reason with them? Before she could decide, a deafening voice boomed across the sky, reverberating through the air like thunder. It spoke in cold mechanical tones, translated somehow into every human language simultaneously. Surrender your resources or face annihilation. The words hit Elena like a punch to the gut. Humanity had always wondered what first contact with aliens might look like, but no one had imagined it would be this terrifying. Governments scrambled to respond, military forces mobilized, and civilians braced for the worst. Yet amidst the fear and uncertainty, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why hadn't the aliens attacked immediately? Why give humanity a chance to surrender if they truly intended to destroy them? Her instincts told her there was more to this story than met the eye. And as the world plunged into chaos, Elena resolved to uncover the truth, not just for herself but for all of humanity. Whatever lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. Earth's fate rested in the hands of those brave enough to fight back. And Elena Carson was determined to be one of them. The alien fleet's message echoed across the globe, loud enough to reach every corner of the planet. Surrender your resources or face annihilation. The words were delivered in a cold, mechanical tone that sent chills down spines worldwide. Humanity froze, unsure how to respond. Governments convened emergency meetings. Military forces scrambled to prepare defenses, and civilians huddled together, glued to their screens as news outlets broadcast endless updates. It was chaos, but beneath the surface, something else simmered. Fear. Dr. Elena Carson watched the events unfold from her small town, feeling both validated and overwhelmed. Her warnings had come true, yet no one had listened until it was too late. Now, humanity stood on the brink of war with an enemy they barely understood. While others panicked, Elena's mind raced with questions. Why had the aliens announced their presence so boldly? Why hadn't they attacked immediately after issuing their ultimatum? And most importantly, why did their behavior seem hesitant? To find answers, Elena dove back into the data she'd collected from the satellite array. She spent hours poring over the signal patterns, searching for clues about the aliens' intentions. That's when she noticed something peculiar. Buried within the transmission were subtle inconsistencies, tiny fluctuations in tone and rhythm that didn't align with the rest of the message. At first glance, they seemed insignificant, but to Elena, they hinted at something deeper. These weren't just commands, they carried traces of emotion, fear, perhaps, or uncertainty. Her discovery intrigued her, but it also raised more questions. If the aliens were afraid, what could possibly scare them? Weren't they the ones holding all the power? Determined to dig deeper, Elena reached out to a group of engineers working on classified military projects. They called themselves Project Sentinel, a secretive team tasked with developing cutting-edge technology to protect Earth from potential threats. Though skeptical at first, the engineers agreed to collaborate with Elena once she presented her findings. Together, they began brainstorming ways to turn the tide in humanity's favor. Meanwhile, global leaders struggled to formulate a response to the aliens' demands. Some argued for surrender, believing resistance would only lead to destruction. Others advocated for immediate retaliation, convinced that showing weakness would embolden the invaders. Tensions ran high as debates raged on, leaving ordinary citizens caught in the crossfire. Riots broke out in major cities, supply chains collapsed, and fear spread like wildfire. Yet amidst the turmoil, pockets of hope emerged. Communities banded together to support one another, sharing food, shelter, and encouragement. For the first time in decades, humanity felt united, not by shared joy, but by shared survival. Back in Elena's makeshift lab, progress was slow but steady. Using insights from the alien transmission, Project Sentinel developed a series of experimental weapons designed to disrupt the invaders' advanced technology. Plasma cannons capable of disabling shields, EMP devices to short-circuit their systems, and cloaking mechanisms to evade detection, all became part of their arsenal. But Elena knew brute force alone wouldn't be enough. They needed strategy, precision, and above all, intelligence. As days turned into weeks, the aliens remained eerily silent. Their ships continued to hover above Earth, casting ominous shadows over cities and towns. Occasionally, smaller vessels descended to conduct reconnaissance missions, scanning the surface with beams of light. Each encounter left humanity more uneasy, but strangely, the aliens refrained from launching any large-scale attacks. This restraint puzzled Elena even further. Were they testing humanity's resolve? Or was there another reason for their hesitation? 1. Night, while analyzing footage captured during one of the reconnaissance missions, Elena made a breakthrough. Zooming in on the alien craft, she spotted markings etched into its hull, symbols unlike anything she'd ever seen before. Intrigued, she cross-referenced the patterns with ancient languages and mathematical sequences, eventually uncovering fragments of meaning. The symbols appeared to represent concepts like unity, scarcity, and desperation. Could it be possible that these invaders weren't conquerors bent on domination, but rather survivors driven by necessity? Elena shared her theory with Project Sentinel, sparking heated discussions among the team. Some dismissed her idea as wishful thinking, insisting the aliens couldn't be trusted. Others saw merit in her hypothesis, arguing that understanding their motivations might provide a path to peace or at least buy humanity more time. Ultimately, they decided to act on both fronts, preparing for battle while exploring diplomatic options. Their opportunity came sooner than expected. One morning, the alien fleet broadcasted another message, this time accompanied by visuals transmitted directly into human devices. The images showed barren landscapes littered with ruins, skies choked with ash, and emaciated creatures resembling the aliens themselves. A voice narrated the scenes, explaining how their homeworld had been ravaged by resource depletion and internal conflict. "We sought new worlds to ensure our survival," the voice concluded. "Your planet offers salvation." For many, the revelation sparked outrage. How dare these invaders justify theft and violence under the guise of survival? Others, however, felt conflicted. If the aliens truly believed Earth was uninhabited, could their actions be excused as ignorance rather than malice? Elena wrestled with these questions herself, torn between anger and empathy. In the end, she realized the truth didn't matter, at least not right now. What mattered was finding a way to protect humanity without escalating the situation unnecessarily. With renewed determination, Elena and Project Sentinel finalized their plans. They equipped a squadron of elite pilots with the experimental weapons, instructing them to target key vulnerabilities in the alien fleet. Simultaneously, they devised a covert operation to infiltrate one of the smaller reconnaissance vessels, hoping to gather valuable intel and potentially establish communication. It was a risky gamble, but with time running out, they had no choice. The day of the operation arrived under a cloud of tension. Pilots suited up in sleek, futuristic armor, their faces masks of determination. Engineers double-checked equipment, ensuring everything functioned perfectly. Meanwhile, Elena monitored the mission remotely from her lab, her heart pounding with anticipation. As the squadron launched into the sky, she whispered a silent prayer, knowing the fate of billions rested on their shoulders. The battle unfolded with breathtaking intensity. Human fighters darted between massive alien ships, dodging laser blasts and retaliating with plasma cannons. Explosions lit up the atmosphere, painting the sky with streaks of fire and smoke. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the humans fought valiantly, exploiting weaknesses identified through Elena's research. Slowly but surely, they gained ground, disabling several cruisers and forcing the aliens to retreat temporarily. But the real victory came when the infiltration team succeeded in boarding a reconnaissance vessel. Inside, they discovered terrified Vorthic soldiers, thin, insect-like beings with glowing eyes and trembling limbs. Contrary to expectations, the aliens put up little resistance, instead pleading for mercy. Through hastily assembled translation software, the humans learned shocking truths. The Vorthic leadership had lied to justify the invasion, claiming Earth was uninhabited and rich in resources. Lower-ranking soldiers, unaware of the deception, now faced the horrifying reality of attacking a sentient species. Armed with this knowledge, Elena proposed a bold strategy. Instead of continuing the war, humanity would expose the Vorthic deception to their own people. Using hacked communication channels, they broadcast damning evidence of corruption and deceit among the Vorthic command. Chaos erupted within the alien fleet as lower-ranking soldiers mutinied against their leaders. Sensing an opportunity, Elena negotiated a ceasefire, offering assistance to help the Vorthic find sustainable solutions rather than pillaging other worlds. Though wary, some factions agreed to listen. By the time the dust settled, humanity had achieved the unimaginable, turning the tables on their would-be conquerors. But the cost had been immense. Cities lay in ruins, millions mourned lost, loved. Wounds and scars ran deep across the fabric of society. Still, amidst the devastation, a glimmer of hope remained. For the first time in history, humanity had faced an existential threat and emerged stronger. As Elena gazed at the stars that night, she reflected on the journey. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges. But if there was one thing she knew for certain, it was this: humanity could handle anything it threw their way, as long as they worked together. And maybe, just maybe, the lessons learned from this encounter would pave the way for a brighter future. Not just for Earth, but for all intelligent life in the cosmos. The ceasefire brokered by Dr. Elena Carson marked a turning point, but it wasn't peace. Not yet. The Vorthic fleet still loomed menacingly above Earth, their ships casting long shadows over cities and towns. While the mutiny within their ranks had weakened their command structure, many of them remained hostile, distrustful of humanity's intentions. For every Vorthic soldier who questioned their leader's motives, there were others who clung to the belief that conquest was their only path to survival. And so, while negotiations continued behind closed doors, humanity prepared for the fight of its life. Elena stood at the center of this whirlwind, her mind racing with strategies and scenarios. She knew the ceasefire wouldn't last forever. The Vorthic leadership would regroup, reassert control, and strike back harder than before. Humanity needed more than just weapons. They needed unity, innovation, and resilience. With time running out, Elena turned her focus toward rallying the global community. This wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about proving that humanity could rise above fear and division when faced with extinction. In the weeks following the initial battles, Project Sentinel became the backbone of Earth's defense efforts. Engineers worked around the clock in underground bunkers, refining the experimental technology Elena had helped develop. Plasma cannons grew more efficient, EMP devices became portable enough for infantry use, and cloaking mechanisms allowed human pilots to evade detection during reconnaissance missions. But beyond these technological advancements, something even more remarkable began to take shape: collaboration. For decades, nations had been divided by borders, politics, and ideologies. Wars, sanctions, and rivalries had kept them apart. Yet, now faced with an enemy from another world, humanity realized it had no choice but to come together. Governments pooled resources, sharing intelligence, manpower, and funding to build a unified global defense network. Scientists from different countries exchanged ideas, combining expertise to solve problems faster than ever before. Even civilians played a crucial role, volunteering en masse to support the war effort. Some joined militias, learning how to operate new weaponry. Others donated supplies, opened their homes to displaced families, or simply spread messages of hope through social media. Elena marveled at this newfound spirit of cooperation. Walking through the bustling corridors of Project Sentinel's headquarters, she saw people from all walks of life working side by side. Engineers, soldiers, doctors, teachers, and artists united by a single purpose. It reminded her of why she'd dedicated her life to science, not just to explore the mysteries of the universe, but to inspire humanity to reach for greatness. Now, as never before, they were doing exactly that. But challenges remained. Despite the progress, cracks began to form in the fragile alliance. Some nations grew impatient, pushing for preemptive strikes against the Vorthic fleet. Others argued for diplomacy, fearing retaliation if humanity acted too aggressively. Tensions flared during strategy meetings, with leaders shouting over one another and storming out of rooms. Elena often found herself caught in the middle, mediating disputes and reminding everyone of the stakes. "If we turn on each other," she warned, "the Vorthic win without firing a shot." Her words resonated with many, but not everyone listened. In particular, General Marcus Hale, a decorated military officer tasked with overseeing Earth's defense forces, remained skeptical of Elena's approach. A gruff man with a no-nonsense attitude, he believed in brute force and quick victories. "We can't negotiate with monsters," he snapped during one heated discussion. "They came here to take what's ours, and we need to show them we won't go down without a fight." Elena understood his frustration, but she refused to give up on diplomacy entirely. Deep down, she believed the Vorthic weren't inherently evil. They were desperate. Their actions might have been wrong, but their motivations stemmed from survival. If humanity could address those underlying issues, perhaps they could forge a lasting solution rather than perpetuating cycles of violence. Still, she knew convincing skeptics like General Hale wouldn't be easy. As preparations for the next phase of the conflict intensified, Elena received unexpected help from an unlikely source: the Vorthic themselves. During interrogations conducted aboard the captured reconnaissance vessel, several lower-ranking soldiers revealed critical information about their fleet's weaknesses. They spoke of energy cores powering the massive star destroyers, cores vulnerable to precise EMP blasts. They described communication hubs used to coordinate attacks, hubs that could be disrupted with targeted hacking. Most importantly, they confessed that morale among the Vorthic troops was crumbling. Many doubted their mission's morality, questioning whether invading Earth was truly worth the cost. This intel transformed Earth's strategy overnight. Instead of launching indiscriminate attacks, Project Sentinel devised surgical strikes aimed at crippling the Vorthic fleet while minimizing civilian casualties. Pilots trained extensively on simulated missions, practicing maneuvers designed to exploit the aliens' vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, cyber warfare teams worked tirelessly to infiltrate Vorthic systems, planting viruses that would disable key components of their ships. The operation, codenamed Operation Phoenix, was set to launch on a moonless night when visibility would be lowest. As the date approached, anticipation reached fever pitch. Soldiers sharpened their skills, engineers double-checked equipment, and civilians prayed for success. Elena spent hours reviewing data, ensuring every detail was accounted for. Though exhausted, she couldn't sleep, her mind consumed by thoughts of what lay ahead. Would humanity prevail, or would this gamble end in disaster? Finally, the night arrived. Under cover of darkness, squadrons of human fighters soared into the sky, their sleek crafts blending seamlessly with the stars. Cloaked in advanced stealth technology, they moved undetected toward the heart of the Vorthic fleet. From her lab, Elena monitored the mission in real time, her eyes glued to screens displaying live feeds from cameras mounted on the fighters. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her desk, silently willing the pilots to stay safe. The first wave struck with precision. Plasma cannons fired concentrated bursts of energy, targeting the energy cores of nearby cruisers. One by one, the massive ships faltered, their shields collapsing as internal systems overloaded. Explosions rocked the alien fleet, sending shockwaves rippling through space. Cheers erupted in the command center as reports flooded in confirming successful hits. But Elena didn't celebrate. Not yet. There were dozens more ships to neutralize, and the Vorthik weren't going down without a fight. As the battle raged on, the aliens launched counterattacks, deploying swarms of smaller drones to overwhelm the human fighters. Pilots dodged laser fire weaving between debris fields created by destroyed cruisers. Some weren't fast enough. Ships exploded mid-air, their crews lost in the void. Each loss hit Elena like a punch to the gut, but she forced herself to stay focused. Lives depended on her ability to guide the mission effectively. Then came the turning point. Cyber warfare teams succeeded in breaching the Vorthik communication hubs, planting viruses that spread like wildfire through their network. Within minutes, entire sections of the fleet went dark, unable to coordinate attacks or respond to threats. Human fighters capitalized on the chaos, picking off isolated vessels with ruthless efficiency. By dawn, the once dominant alien armada lay in ruins, its remaining ships retreating into deep space. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. Cities lit up with fireworks, crowds gathered in public squares chanting slogans of triumph, and world leaders delivered speeches praising humanity's courage and ingenuity. But amidst the jubilation, Elena felt conflicted. Yes, they had won, for now. But the cost had been immense. Thousands of lives lost, billions of dollars spent, and scars that would take generations to heal. Was this really worth it? Her doubts deepened when she learned of the aftermath aboard the captured reconnaissance vessel. The Vorthik prisoners, already traumatized by their experiences, broke down completely upon hearing of their fleet's defeat. Some begged for mercy, promising to abandon their mission and return home. Others expressed guilt, admitting they had known the invasion was wrong but felt powerless to stop it. Listening to their pleas, Elena couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. These creatures weren't monsters. They were victims of circumstance, driven to desperation by circumstances beyond their control. Determined to prevent further bloodshed, Elena proposed a bold plan: offer the Vorthik assistance in rebuilding their civilization. Using Earth's resources and knowledge, humanity could help them find sustainable solutions to their problems, solutions that didn't involve conquering other worlds. It was a risky proposition, fraught with ethical dilemmas and logistical challenges. But Elena believed it was the only way to ensure lasting peace. After all, if humanity rejected the Vorthik outright, they risked creating an eternal enemy, and in a universe teeming with unknown dangers, having allies, even reluctant ones, might prove invaluable. To her surprise, the idea gained traction. World leaders, weary of war and eager to move forward, agreed to explore diplomatic options. Scientists volunteered to share agricultural techniques. Renewal. The aftermath of Operation Phoenix left humanity both victorious and shaken. The battle had crippled the Vorthik fleet, forcing them to retreat into deep space, but it hadn't eliminated the threat entirely. Thousands of human lives had been lost. Cities lay in ruins, and the scars of war ran deep across the planet. Yet amidst the devastation, a glimmer of hope emerged. Humanity had proven that it could stand up to an overwhelmingly powerful adversary, not just through brute force, but through ingenuity, unity, and sheer determination. Now, as the dust settled, Dr. Elena Carson faced her greatest challenge yet, transforming this fragile ceasefire into lasting peace. Elena knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. While the Vorthik leadership had been weakened, they remained a formidable opponent. Their surviving ships still possessed advanced technology capable of annihilating Earth if provoked. Worse, their desperation for resources hadn't diminished. If anything, their defeat had likely made them more dangerous, pushing them to double down on their mission rather than abandoning it. For every step forward, there was potential for 2 steps back. But Elena refused to let fear dictate humanity's actions. Instead, she focused on what she'd learned about the Vorthik during interrogations aboard the captured reconnaissance vessel. Their stories painted a picture of a civilization teetering on the brink of collapse, a society ravaged by centuries of resource scarcity, environmental degradation, and internal conflict. These weren't conquerors bent on domination. They were survivors driven to extremes by circumstances beyond their control, and while their methods were wrong, their motivations were rooted in survival. This realization gave Elena an idea, one that could change the course of history. Rather than treating the Vorthik as enemies to be defeated, what if humanity offered them a lifeline? Using Earth's knowledge and resources, they could help the Vorthik find sustainable solutions to their problems, solutions that didn't involve pillaging other worlds. It was a bold proposal, fraught with risks and challenges, but Elena believed it was worth pursuing. After all, turning the Vorthik into allies might prove far more valuable than continuing a cycle of violence that could only end in mutual destruction. To bring her vision to life, Elena worked closely with world leaders, scientists, and diplomats. Together, they drafted a comprehensive plan outlining how Earth could assist the Vorthik without compromising its own security. Agricultural experts proposed sharing techniques for growing crops in harsh environments, drawing from innovations developed in Earth's deserts and Arctic regions. Renewable energy specialists suggested introducing solar power satellites and fusion reactors, technologies that could provide clean, limitless energy to struggling civilizations. Medical teams offered treatments for diseases afflicting the Vorthik population, using cutting-edge genetic engineering to combat ailments caused by malnutrition and radiation exposure. At first, many dismissed the plan as naive or impractical. Critics argued that helping the Vorthik would deplete Earth's already strained resources, leaving humanity vulnerable to future threats. Others worried about the ethical implications of aiding invaders who had brought so much suffering. Even General Marcus Hale voiced his concerns, warning that such generosity might embolden the Vorthik rather than pacify them. "We can't trust them," he growled during one heated meeting. "They'll take whatever we give them and come back for more." Despite the backlash, Elena stood firm. She reminded everyone of the stakes, not just for Earth but for the entire galaxy. If humanity rejected the Vorthik outright, they risked creating an eternal enemy, one that might return years later with even greater strength and resolve. On the other hand, offering assistance could foster goodwill, paving the way for cooperation between species. More importantly, it set a precedent for how humanity approached other intelligent life forms in the universe. Were they conquerors or caretakers, predators or peacemakers? The choice they made now would define their legacy for generations to come. Slowly but surely, support for Elena's plan began to grow. World leaders recognized the strategic benefits of turning the Vorthik into allies rather than adversaries. Scientists saw an opportunity to share knowledge and advance their fields through collaboration. Civilians, inspired by tales of compassion and resilience, rallied behind the initiative, organizing fundraisers and awareness campaigns to drum up public support. Even skeptics like General Hale softened their stance, though not without reservations. "Fine," he grumbled after hours of debate. "Let's try your way. But if this blows up in our faces, don't say I didn't warn you." With approval secured, Project Sentinel shifted its focus from combat operations to diplomatic outreach. Teams of negotiators, accompanied by military escorts for protection, boarded shuttles bound for the remnants of the Vorthik fleet. Their mission was clear: deliver Earth's proposal and gauge the Vorthik response. Elena herself joined the delegation, determined to see the process through to the end. Though nervous, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced since the early days of her research. This wasn't just about saving Earth, it was about building bridges across the stars. The journey to the Vorthik fleet was tense but uneventful. As the shuttle approached the massive star destroyer serving as the aliens' command center, Elena marveled at its sheer size. Despite the damage inflicted during Operation Phoenix, the ship remained imposing, its jagged edges and glowing panels exuding an aura of raw power. A shiver ran down her spine as she stepped onto the boarding ramp, flanked by armed guards. For all their talk of diplomacy, no one doubted the danger lurking within these halls. Inside, the atmosphere was grim. Dim lighting cast eerie shadows, across metallic walls while faint hums and clicks echoed through the corridors. Vorthic soldiers, thin, insect-like beings with glowing eyes, watched silently as the human delegation passed by, their expressions unreadable. Elena couldn't tell whether they were curious, hostile, or simply resigned to their fate. Whatever the case, the tension was palpable. Finally, they reached the chamber where the Vorthic leadership awaited. At the center stood a towering figure, clad in ornate armor, its elongated limbs and segmented body giving it an almost regal appearance. This was Commander Zyrax, the mastermind behind the invasion. Flanked by advisors and guards, Zyrax regarded the humans with cold indifference, its multifaceted eyes scanning each member of the delegation. When Elena stepped forward to speak, the alien tilted its head slightly, as if intrigued by her presence. "Commander Zyrax," Elena began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We are here to offer a proposal. Your people face dire challenges that threaten your very existence. We understand your desperation, and we wish to help." She paused, gauging the alien's reaction. "In exchange for laying down your weapons and ceasing hostilities, we will share our knowledge and resources to aid your civilization. Together, we can find solutions that benefit both our peoples." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Zyrax emitted a series of clicks and chirps, translated into English by hastily assembled software. "You speak of aid," the alien said, its tone devoid of emotion. "Yet your kind has shown us nothing but hostility. Why should we trust your words?" Elena hesitated, knowing the question carried weight. "Because we have seen the truth," she replied. "Your people are not monsters. They are victims of circumstance, driven to extremes by forces beyond your control. We do not condone your actions, but we recognize their origins. And we believe that cooperation is better than conflict for both our sakes." Zyrax studied her for several moments, its glowing eyes narrowing slightly. Then, without warning, it turned to its advisors, exchanging rapid-fire clicks and gestures. After what felt like an eternity, the commander faced Elena again. "Very well," it said finally. "We accept your proposal, but know this. If you betray us, there will be consequences." Relief washed over Elena, though she kept her expression neutral. "Thank you, Commander Zyrax. You won't regret this decision." Over the following weeks, Earth and the Vorthic embarked on an unprecedented era of collaboration. Scientists from both sides worked together to adapt Earth's technologies for use in Vorthic environments, while agricultural teams introduced sustainable farming practices to barren planets. Medical professionals treated sick and injured Vorthic soldiers, earning their gratitude and respect. Slowly but surely, trust began to form, replacing fear and suspicion with understanding and camaraderie. Of course, challenges remained. Some Vorthic factions resisted the alliance, viewing it as weakness rather than strength. Others questioned whether Earth truly intended to follow through on its promises. Back on Earth, critics continued to argue that the effort was misguided, warning of potential long-term risks. Yet despite these hurdles, progress persisted. By working together, humanity and the Vorthic achieved feats neither could have accomplished alone. As months turned into years, the partnership yielded remarkable results. Entire Vorthic colonies transformed from wastelands into thriving ecosystems, powered by renewable energy and fed by bountiful harvests. Trade routes opened between Earth and Vorthic territories, fostering cultural exchange and economic growth. Most importantly, the bond between the two species grew stronger, proving that years had passed since the day humanity faced its greatest challenge and rose to meet it. The scars of war still lingered, etched into the landscapes of cities that had been rebuilt brick by brick and heart by heart. But alongside those scars came something else. Hope. Hope for a brighter future, not just for Earth, but for all intelligent life in the cosmos. Dr. Elena Carson stood at the forefront of this new era, her name forever engraved in history as the woman who turned fear into friendship. The alliance between Earth and the Vorthic had blossomed into something extraordinary. What began as a fragile ceasefire had evolved into a thriving partnership, one built on mutual respect and shared goals. Together, humans and Vorthik worked tirelessly to heal the wounds inflicted by centuries of conflict, both within their own civilizations and across the galaxy. They shared knowledge, resources, and dreams, forging bonds stronger than anyone could have imagined. On Earth, the changes were profound. Cities once devastated by alien attacks now gleamed with futuristic architecture powered by clean energy. Solutions developed through collaboration with the Vorthik. Skyscrapers shimmered under sunlight reflected from solar panels, while wind turbines hummed softly along coastlines. Streets buzzed with vehicles fueled by advanced fusion reactors, eliminating pollution and ushering in an age of sustainability. Even rural areas benefited, as agricultural innovations allowed farmers to cultivate crops in previously barren lands. Food shortages became a thing of the past, and hunger, a problem that had plagued humanity for millennia, was eradicated entirely. But the transformation wasn't limited to infrastructure or technology. Humanity itself had changed. The war had united people across borders, ideologies, and cultures in ways no politician or treaty ever could. Nations set aside old rivalries, working together toward common goals rather than competing for dominance. Education systems were revamped to emphasize critical thinking, creativity, and empathy, preparing future generations to navigate a universe filled with possibilities. Art flourished as well, inspired by the stories of resilience and unity that had emerged during humanity's darkest hour. Paintings, music, literature, all bore witness to the triumph of spirit over despair. For the Vorthik, the changes were equally transformative. Once a society teetering on the brink of collapse, they now thrived thanks to Earth's assistance. Their homeworlds, once desolate wastelands, bloomed with greenery and life. Rivers flowed again, carrying water purified by Earth's filtration systems. Crops grew abundantly, nourishing populations that had long suffered from famine. Medical advancements cured diseases thought incurable, extending lifespans and improving quality of life. Slowly but surely, the Vorthik began to rebuild not just their physical world but their collective psyche. Gone was the desperation that had driven them to invade Earth. In its place stood a newfound sense of purpose and dignity. Yet perhaps, the most remarkable outcome of the alliance was the cultural exchange between the two species. Humans learned much from the Vorthik, not just about science and engineering, but about art, philosophy, and spirituality. The aliens' intricate language of clicks and chirps revealed layers of meaning far beyond human speech, teaching linguists new ways to express emotion and ideas. Their music, created using harmonic vibrations produced by their segmented limbs, inspired composers to experiment with sounds never before heard on Earth. And their ancient myths, passed down through generations, offered insights into universal themes like survival, sacrifice, and redemption. In return, the Vorthik embraced elements of human culture with equal enthusiasm. They marveled at Earth's diversity, fascinated by the myriad traditions, languages, and customs that made humanity unique. Festivals celebrating everything from harvests to holidays captivated them, leading to joint celebrations where humans and Vorthik danced, sang, and feasted together. Sports became another avenue for connection, as Vorthik athletes adapted their agility and speed to compete in games like soccer and track and field. Over time, these interactions fostered genuine friendships, erasing any lingering mistrust and replacing it with camaraderie. Dr. Elena Carson played a pivotal role in nurturing this relationship. After the initial negotiations, she transitioned from strategist to ambassador, traveling between Earth and Vorthik territories to oversee collaborative projects. Her presence became a symbol of unity, earning her admiration from both species. Children looked up to her as a hero, while adults respected her wisdom and determination. Politicians sought her counsel, knowing her insights carried weight. Yet despite her fame, Elena remained humble, always prioritizing the greater good over personal accolades. One of her proudest achievements was the establishment of the Galactic Unity Initiative, GUI, an organization dedicated to fostering cooperation among intelligent species throughout the universe. Headquartered aboard a massive space station orbiting Saturn, the GUI served as a neutral ground where representatives from different planets could gather to discuss issues ranging from trade agreements to interstellar diplomacy. Under Elena's leadership, the initiative expanded rapidly, attracting members from dozens of civilizations eager to learn from Earth's example. The impact of the GUI extended far beyond politics. It sparked a renaissance of exploration and discovery, as scientists and explorers ventured deeper into the galaxy than ever before. Spacecraft equipped with cutting-edge engines traveled light years in mere weeks, mapping uncharted star systems and cataloging countless forms of life. Some missions encountered hostile species, but many more found peaceful ones willing to share knowledge and form alliances. Each success reinforced the belief that cooperation, not conquest, was the key to unlocking the universe's mysteries. Back on Earth, everyday life reflected this spirit of progress. Schools taught courses on xenobiology and intercultural communication, preparing students for careers in fields unimaginable just decades earlier. Museums displayed artifacts brought back from distant worlds, inspiring visitors to dream big. Entertainment industries produced films and novels exploring what it meant to be part of a galactic community, sparking conversations about identity, ethics, and responsibility. Even religion evolved, as theologians grappled with questions raised by encounters with extraterrestrial beings. Was there a universal creator? Did other species worship gods similar to, or radically different from, human deities? These debates enriched spiritual practices, encouraging believers to embrace curiosity and openness. For Elena, the culmination of these efforts came during a historic event known as the First Galactic Summit. Held aboard the GUI space station, the summit brought together leaders from over 50 civilizations, including Earth and the Vorthik. For 3 days, delegates engaged in discussions covering topics as diverse as climate regulation, artificial intelligence ethics, and cultural preservation. Breakout sessions allowed experts to collaborate on specific challenges, such as developing vaccines for alien pathogens or designing habitats suitable for multiple species. By the end of the conference, participants signed the Treaty of Galactic Harmony, a landmark agreement committing signatories to peaceful coexistence and mutual support. As Elena addressed the assembly during the closing ceremony, tears welled up in her eyes. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter," she said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "A chapter defined not by fear or division, but by courage and unity. We have proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can come together to build a better future, for ourselves, for our children, and for all sentient beings." Her words resonated deeply, earning thunderous applause from the audience. When the summit concluded, leaders returned to their respective homeworlds armed with plans to implement the treaty's provisions. On Earth, governments invested heavily in programs designed to educate citizens about interstellar relations, ensuring everyone understood the importance of maintaining harmony. Meanwhile, the Vorthik continued to serve as Earth's closest allies, sharing their expertise and resources whenever needed. Looking back on the journey, Elena felt immense pride, not just in herself, but in humanity as a whole. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, changing the course of history. She often thought about the night she'd first detected the alien signal, sitting alone in her observatory, unsure if anyone would believe her. Now, standing beside friends from across the stars, she realized how far they'd come. One evening, as she gazed at the stars from her home in the small town where it all began, Elena smiled. The sky stretched endlessly above, dotted with constellations, she now recognized as familiar companions. Each twinkle represented a world waiting to be explored, a story waiting to be told. And though the path ahead would undoubtedly present challenges, she knew humanity was ready to face them. Because humanity had learned something invaluable, that greatness wasn't measured by power or wealth, but by compassion and resilience. That true strength lay not in domination, but in collaboration. And that the universe, vast and unpredictable as it was, held boundless opportunities for those brave enough to seize them. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill her lungs. Then, turning away from tea,